Hi there, my lovely friends. I I think if anybody has either got a book talk or a booktube or whatever else, their feed is going to be full of the Audra Winter story. The author who was an amazing marketer, who got a whole stack of pre-orders for a book before ever having been read by anybody, and who then had a whole stack of disappointed readers when the book was finally delivered. I don't normally talk about book drama, but I did think, because I have watched so many videos on this topic, that there was some lessons that we could learn, both from what she did and her response to the backlash from her readers. Now, at the time of recording this, which is in the middle of August, as I understand it, Audra Winters is having her book, The Age of Scorpius. It is going to be re-edited, and then it is going to be re-released. I'm not sure if it's in December or in March, April of next year, but her plan is to edit the book, which many people believe should be completely rewritten. Now, that's got nothing to do with me. What an author does with their work is entirely up to them. However, there were a few things. I will say, I really felt bad for Audra. Anybody who is in that situation of believing for so long that their story was so good and then putting it out there and getting such a harsh backlash against it would be devastating. I think it's probably, particularly among authors, new authors, it's our biggest fear. But there was a couple of things that Audra did that did not help her situation. And one of those was responding to the negative criticism about her book, and not responding very well. When it is said by a lot of reviewers, again on YouTube, Book Talk, doesn't matter where it is, reviewers will tell you that reviewers are for readers, they are not for authors. So if a reader puts an opinion about a book out there publicly, they are written for another reader or a potential reader. They are not written for the author. Reviewers are told, do not tag the authors, do not bring your review to the attention of the author, particularly if it's negative. But whatever happens in that space, it is not on an author to respond, to basically imply that the reader didn't understand the character or her style of writing. Because, yeah, I could go into a long rant about that, but I won't, because we're trying to stay focused here on what we can learn so that new authors possibly watching this don't make the same mistakes. So lesson number one, do not respond. That is not on. Now, I do give Audra credit for claiming after a couple of days, apparently, that she does intend to re-release the book. I don't agree with the way she's doing it. I don't agree with the plan that she's outlined on social media about how she's going to go about this. But again, that is my personal opinion. This has got nothing to do with Audra. It's got nothing to do with anybody. I'm entitled to my opinion the same as anyone else. I have not read the book, but from what I have seen, it requires an extensive rewrite that may be difficult. But what I did notice when Audra was responding, particularly on videos, was she kept going on about the fact that she had worked on this book for 10 years, that she had poured her blood, sweat, and tears into this book, that it was really hard for her, and people didn't understand how hard this was for her. As true as that might be, A reader does not care about the story that went into the book or how the book came to be, unless that's actually the topic of the book. The Age of Scorpius is fiction. A reader does not need to know that the author took 10 years to write it. The reader has simply paid good money, quite a bit of money to my understanding, because of the art and the sprayed pages and all that other crap that went into it. But the reader has paid good money to read a story which did not match their expectations. So learning that simply because the author spent so much time to get there and how much of a personal sacrifice it was to them to put the book out, none of that's got anything to do with the reader. The reader simply wants value for money. Totally understandable. It's the way the world is, especially in a tight economy. So if a book doesn't meet the standards, doesn't meet the expectations of the reader, then they're entitled to be disappointed, regardless of the author's backstory, and they're entitled to say that publicly. And I think this was something that Audra handled so badly, because in all the responses that I heard, and I did watch countless videos about it, it was like a train wreck. I couldn't stop watching. But all she kept reinforcing was, I've worked on this for so long. This has been the meaning of my life for so long. My whole life is invested in this work. I feel really sad for any person who says that. As somebody who puts out roughly 12 books a year, I could not imagine what it would be like to be in that situation and be that fixated over one book and one world. Passion is one thing, but a well-rounded author also needs to have a life, even if it's one like mine, which is mostly centered on my home and involves crafts and my grandchildren and my children and everything else. But you need a life outside of that writing world. Otherwise, your writing gets stagnated, just saying. But the whole point of her, even in her response, she claims she is neurodivergent. Again, I'm sorry. But if a reader was shelling over money for a book, that still doesn't take away from the fact that the reading experience was not up to par. You can make these excuses, and this is what Audra was doing. But it doesn't change the fact that that story needs rewriting. Now, a number of people had recommended to Audra, from what I can understand, that she actually write something else. And I would be quite interested to see that, because you see, in all of the stuff that has been reported on Audra Winter, including her own content, I still don't know what that book's about. Because Audra made the focus of her marketing about her and her struggle to write it and the length of time that she took to write it, and the fact that this is an idea she has nurtured and written and crafted since she was 12 years old. I still don't know what the book is about. And this is another lesson we can learn. If you are marketing your book, yes, it is fine to share the relevance of that story to you as the author, but that is done in passing. A reader wants to know what the story's about. What can they expect from between those pages? And that is something that you should be conveying to your readers, not the trials and tribulations of the author's life. While sad, it might be sad, it still doesn't explain what the book is about. And I probably shouldn't keep going on about that because I could go on about that at length. But the point is that it really, as harsh as it might be to say, it doesn't matter how hard you've worked on something. If the bulk of your readers do not like it, then crying about your story is not going to make any difference. You need to knuckle down, you need to start again, and you need to rewrite that story or write something else. It is the story that your readers buy. Unless you're writing an autobiography, of course, in which case, wax lyrical about your life as much as you like. But readers come for the story, and that story needs to be good. And there was one other little thing, because that I wrote that point down because another part of Audra's response was going on about how her team of people that she's apparently employed are people, they're artists, and they apparently are all involved in this rewrite process and doing extra art and doing all these things. And I remember listening, probably in the space of one day, I had listened to 3 different YouTubers explain that this was what Audra was doing, and actually then listened to Audra's explaining her plan for all of this, for her rewrite, and going on about these artists and teams that were helping her. But she still, at the time of recording, hasn't hired a copy editor and or an inline editor. She's relying on her artists to help her with her story. And while artists are amazingly creative people, just like authors, there didn't seem to be any emphasis again on the story, only the pretty pictures that were going to be made about the story. It has also been suggested online that she focus instead on a graphic novel instead of an actual novel. But again, that's irrelevant. When you put your book out, unless your story, your personal life, is directly relevant to the book and its story, then it is the story and the characters you should be focusing on, not how hard and how long it took for you to write that book. That warrants like a line in the bottom of an author bio. It does not become the focus of your marketing. And the one last lesson that I wanted to mention that I'm not sure I've stressed enough in my videos, that doubt, that fear of having readers not like your work, I still feel that way. Well over 100 books later. As I'm recording this, I have got a book coming out in 5 days. And like all of my books, I will worry until I start to see some reviews come in as to whether or not I've hit the mark. Because it doesn't matter how many books you write. We're all capable of writing failures, the same as we're all capable of writing successes. And I will worry about this until I start to see a couple of reviews. Reviews I won't respond to unless they're messaged to my email, but reviews that I or my daughter will look for me to make sure that it's actually hit the mark that I was hoping for. So the final lesson I want to give about this that comes from Audra Winter is that don't do what she did. When you put your book out, and please don't let her story stop you, but when you put your book out, you need to let it go. I have said countless times that my first book, The Reluctant Wolf, that was published in February of 2014, wasn't edited. It has spelling mistakes. It has wrong words. I could not keep my POVs straight in a chapter to save myself. The story wasn't bad. But the thing is I put it out, I let it go. And I do that every single time. When you make the decision to push your baby out into the world, then you have to trust it's going to stand on what you've done and that you've done the very best that you can. And then you turn around and you go and sit back in your office chair and you start writing your next one. Because that's out there now. It's living its life, whether it dies or flourishes among the readers. You can't predict and no one can tell. You just have to let it go and move on to the next one. I don't know if any of this has helped you or whether anything I've said actually hits a mark for you. What are your thoughts? What are your ideas? Have you seen the story about Audra Winter? Has it made you worried about putting out your first book? Or are you a bit like me and an experienced author and have looked there and thought, God, that poor girl, would somebody please take her in hand and help her out? Let me know. But I post long-form content on Mondays and Thursdays. I am still trying to get the YouTube algorithm to recognize that my channel is active again, as I'm not obviously not currently monetized because I need more watch hours. So it needs to be pushed out to a few more people. So whether you agree with me or don't agree with me or whatever else, any interaction at all helps with the algorithm, and I truly appreciate it. I do answer all of your comments because I am trying to build a community here of authors helping other authors. That was something Audra said we didn't do, but actually we're pretty good at it. Unfortunately, helping other authors doesn't necessarily mean agreeing with them. Anyway, my friends, I have rambled for long enough. I am off to have another cup of tea because it's still chilly here. And until next time, my friend, keep writing. And we will see you in our next video. Bye.